Did you know that most organizations today follow the same structure developed during the Industrial Revolution? In today's rapidly changing world, the traditional hierarchical model is nowadays a recipe for a slow, painful death. Let me paint a different picture. Imagine if organizations were a science, where organizational structure represented the bones and joints, organizational design represented the muscles and tissues, and organizational development represented the nervous system, meaning these complex functions, while separate, are also interdependent upon one another. As such, these organizational dynamics, design, structure, and development, are also supported by an open systems perspective, which means that changing one part often has implications for other parts of the organization. Therefore, successful leaders ensure that organizational changes do not disrupt the alignment of organizational dynamics. Due to the skyrocketing market trend of globalization, for organizations to remain competitive, they need to be both adaptive and collaborative. This is also the reality of evolutionary biology, as living elements must be able to adapt to their changing environment, or just like these animals, if they did not, they would perish. Thus, to support these trends, organizations today have gone towards a more organic approach to organizational design. Though this is placing leaders in a challenging position, as many are struggling with finding the appropriate balance for their organization between both organic design, meaning a more flexible organization that encourages learning and innovation, and a mechanistic design, the more traditional organization focused on rules and efficiency. Because to stay competitive in today's climate, organizations need both efficiency and innovation. However, these types of changes will not come easy, as top leaders will also need to instill new ways of thinking, new attitudes, and new values within employees. If not, then change efforts will fail. Everyone participates in culture, right? But culture generally goes unnoticed. It is only when managers try to implement new strategies, structures, or systems that go against basic cultural norms and values that then they come face to face with the power of culture. Therefore, leaders need to ensure that their organization's culture reinforces their strategy and structural design. For instance, if the external environment, open systems, requires flexibility and responsiveness, then the culture should encourage adaptability. In fact, and according to research, organizations with a strong culture are at almost 100% success rate. However, it is crucial to note that this does not mean leaders should hire for cultural fit, as hiring all like-minded individuals will only lead to groupthink. And groupthink is bad. It's the opposite of innovation. Rather, an organization strong in culture looks for hires with cultural contributions, meaning what can this employee add to our current culture? This also supports relational coordination, which is about ingraining the concept of collaboration into the design and culture of an organization. However, it is also dependent upon shared knowledge, clear goals, and mutual respect. Nonetheless, and going back to evolutionary biology, we humans are not wired to think collectively, which therein lies the paradox, as a cooperative environment entails collaboration and collective intelligence. However, the scientific community is known for their knowledge sharing, which consequently also promotes a learning organization. Thus, by emulating the strategies scientists are using, such as thinking analytically, hypothesis statements, and utilizing data to drive evidence-based decision-making, other fields could also achieve a similar structure, a hybrid model in organizational design, so to speak. Furthermore, as change evolves and interdependence increases, expect an uptick in conflict, as organizations are inherently political entities, which also means leaders do not have the luxury of choosing to stay out of politics, as organizational politics is largely about navigating the waters on behalf of your team, because a leader's responsibility is to remove any barriers that may prevent their staff from achieving success. Therefore, leaders need to think strategically in how they build relationships with others, as power is not all about hierarchy. Rather, power is more indicative of the competencies established from our interactions with others, whether positive or negative. Intangible resources like culture, innovation, and risk-taking are becoming increasingly essential for today's organizations to stay relevant. As such, leaders should consider using a model or framework to aid in fostering organizational learning and innovation. For example, during highly uncertain times, look towards models such as Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory to ensure that basic human needs are being met. Or Peter Senge's 5 Disciplines of a Learning Organization is a great framework in connection to not only organizational learning and innovation, but also change and even lending to politics. For instance, by looking at organizational learning through the lens of a systems thinking perspective, with proper self-awareness, we can better see how our decisions affect others. The ladder of inference is another great tool to remind leaders that assumptions can often lead to faulty actions. And finally, the 5-stage model of dynamic capabilities, where adaptation to environmental changes is at the heart of dynamic capabilities, is a great model where research encourages leaders to craft their own unique narratives towards continually improving organizational learning and organizational innovation. Measuring for effectiveness and scanning the external environment are also critical components to leadership. One tool that can help with this is the work systems change model. It is similar to the concept of dynamic capabilities model, as it encourages leaders to create their own unique narrative. This one, however, focuses exclusively on innovation. SWOT is another model which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This would be an excellent tool for helping leaders as they craft their innovative narratives. However, when measuring for effectiveness, it is always a good idea to simultaneously utilize multiple assessment tools, especially in conjunction with SWOT, as SWOTs are often vague. For example, the ACQD factors or the pest analysis are great supplementary additions. I am very much for an organic environment. However, my personality has always been more proactive, and self-motivation is needed in a flexible environment. So fortunately, organic design comes more naturally to me. However, this also comes on the heels of working in a more mechanistic environment, as I'm sure most people have as well in their career, and also working from a 8-year long run in a competitive environment, as often I was not very happy in those situations. The only thing that really kept me in the competitive environment was a past leader, because she treated me like a person, meaning our relationship was not just transactional. She actually cared about me, and that's the type of people I need to surround myself with, and it's also the type of leader I strive to be. As such, and I have said this from the first class of this program, I'd like to say that I'm an aspiring transformational leader, which is more person-focused, and it's also the type of leadership that is needed to drive change efforts and to support an organic environment in today's market. Therefore, in a sense, I feel grateful that the world is shifting to a place where I feel I belong more towards. As such, I want to be able to utilize tools such as Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory and be a leader that inspires self-actualization in others, which I know is a rarity to achieve in and of itself, but that's what today's climate is about. People need purpose, and I want to be the reason people are happy and feel supported. I have also learned that my vulnerabilities can and will be used against me. Therefore, after some deep soul searching over the past couple of years, I have learned not to place all my cards on the table up front. It seems like a simple conclusion after all that time, but that was hard for me to grasp, as I was trying to balance who I was as a person, as well as ensuring that I wasn't making anyone feel uncomfortable. Meaning, that's about self-awareness and recognizing that your effectiveness of your interpersonal skills is determined by how others perceive you. And we know from the ladder of inference that I described briefly, most everyone will interpret your intentions differently, as we humans are great at relying on assumptions to drive our life choices. Therefore, I can't control how people may act, but I can control how I react. And in that same regard, by focusing on the things I do have control over, such as exercising every day, I became much stronger, both mentally and physically. Thus, taking the time to learn, unlearn, and even relearn, that's a tough journey, but it's also a critical component to leadership. It's also not about needing a thicker skin from time to time. It's about being more open to feedback and making a concerted effort to drive change from within. Because as a leader, if I can't refine my own core values, why would I expect others to do the same? Today, I am working in a collaborative environment with scientists, which is why I was using biology metaphors throughout the paper, as it tied into my current professional experience. And dare I say it, I am happy. I also have these leadership and organizational development classes to thank for that, as by taking these classes, I was better able to narrow the type of environment I needed to work in order to thrive, which is also 100 times better than any career counselor I've ever sought, as with these classes, I am the one putting in the work, and that's the reality of life. Thus, in response to the reflection prompt, I am already utilizing and living out all these concepts I've been learning, and I'm excited to learn more and continue pushing myself to grow both personally and professionally. In conclusion, organizational learning provides a great foundation for organizational innovativeness. However, that does not mean that organizational learning automatically leads to innovation. Organizational learning is a social process, so if innovation is the goal, it needs to be a deliberately stated outcome or core value. Organizations are also interdependent systems. For instance, every organization needs resources to survive, right? Which leads us back to interdependence, where we started. Interdependence leads to uncertainty, and to reduce uncertainty, organizations form strategies to survive. However, as markets shift over time, stability turns into instability and the cycle starts all over again. But this is to be expected as every organization goes through life cycles. But remember, change, not stability, is the natural order of things. On a closing note, this is 2022. Trust in your employees you hire, foster that psychological safety, encourage innovation and collaboration, and reward employees whose behaviors are reflective or indicative of the values you are trying to instill. But also have fun along the way. Don't take yourself so seriously all the time. Otherwise, innovation will pass you by. Therefore, keep scanning the environment, think open systems, stay open-minded, and allow yourself to grow. Thanks.